So it is my last introduction to our class because next week we will start our or your presentations, and each week I will write you, as usual, a note giving names of presenters and the topic of respective presentations. And my last presentation is surprising for me and probably also will be surprising for you. I was not planning to include in our class the topic which I'm going to present you now because I was not aware even of existence of the topic, but the book was published. The author of the book was present in media, not only in the US, but world widely, also in Poland. The book was translated into Polish and discussed. And I think that part of the beauty of the course which I give with each year is that sometimes I discover new topics which are connected with the topic of the seminar and I think should be included or updated. I hope that you will enjoy perhaps not reading entire book because this book is quite thick. I have Polish edition and I sent you a PDF of the original English version. But for those who will postpone the reading of the entire book, I send also a short version. It means only 9 pages, which is a kind of summary of this book, written and published last year in New York Times by Shoshana Zuboff, who is our author. Why I thought that it will be more interesting than to follow traditional topics, which I previously thought to include in the course, because it is nicely connected with our previous discussion on the essay and book by Samuel Huntington and Fred Halliday. Namely, we posed the question, is the clash of civilizations a real fact or is more constructed by Huntington? And I think most of us were quite critical and even skeptical about this constructed view of the reality as clashing between cultures and civilizations. And I think that book by Shoshana Zuboff give us more arguments to be skeptical. So now the title of the book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. So we have a new stage of capitalism, which she named the Age of Surveillance. And I think following her argumentation, you will agree that is something new, qualitatively speaking, in the modern capitalism. But perhaps the more important is the subtitle, The Fight for a Human Future of the New Frontier of Power. Why I thought that this book is not only fitting in our topic, but is a good conclusion because we are 20 years after Huntington. As you remember, he wrote his famous essay in 1993 and book 3 years later. And here we have to deal with the book published in 2019 by also a professor of Harvard University. So we have the same institution, the scholar who is part of the same institution as Huntington, but we are in completely different world. To make my reflection on my presentation clear, I will follow closely this article which I mentioned, published by Shoshana Zuboff in New York Times in January of last year. And I divided this quite simple essay in basic thoughts, which I will simply read and briefly comment, because I think that we enter in a very special moment of our world where the question of fundamentalism, who is fundamentalistically oriented, the religious group, politicians, should be reshaped, redefined, because someone else is actually ruling the world. And it's not nothing to do with conspiracy theory, but simply with an understanding what is going on around us. So, the first thought, the rise of surveillance capitalism over the last 2 decades went largely unchallenged. In other words, we were not aware, even most of us were not aware that something powerful is growing, and nobody was able or willing to challenge this fastest growing of basically economic power, but as you know, um, economy, politics, knowledge is all connected with one another. And what is very closely connected with this statement that surveillance capitalism was not a challenge is the fact that we are not aware. We thought, as Zuboff's right, that we search Google, but now we understand that Google searches us. We assumed that we use social media to connect, but we learned that connection is how social media uses us. So, in other words, we are not fully controlling what we are doing. We are controlled by someone who is bigger and more powerful than we are, and even that we realized. And second element, which is closely connected with our effort to learn, is the fact that we are toward the surveillance capitalists in a not partnership situation. Because of this inequality, or because this disproportion between our possibilities and the power, growing power of surveillance capitalism, we found ourselves in, as she called it, epistemic inequality. And epistemic inequality is not based on what we can earn, how many money we can get, but rather on what we can learn. It is defined as an equal access to learning imposed by private commercial mechanisms of information capture, production, analysis, and sales. It is best exemplified in the fast-growing abyss between what we know and what is known about us. Again, we are in a way a victim of this process of disproportion accumulating knowledge. We know less and less about the world. The world is more and more complicated for us, and in the same moment, we are as an object of knowing for others. And I think it is good to know this. And now, who are those mysterious capitalists? The new capitalist is the third element of this analysis, of this diagnosis that we are living in the new situation. And this is again only last 20 years. And the longer quotation. During the last 2 decades, the leading surveillance capitalists, well, familiar, Google, later followed by Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft, so only four, helped to drive this societal transformation while simultaneously ensuring the ascendance to the pinnacle of the epistemic hierarchy. They operated in the shadow of mass huge knowledge monopolies by taking without asking, a maneuver that every child recognizes as theft. Surveillance capitalism begins by unilaterally staking a claim to private human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data. Our lives are rendered as the data flows. And I think this is the very important element of this new capitalism, that we are subject of growing control of these four new capitalists. Only four. And how many information they have about us, how many percentage of this knowledge they accumulated during the last 4 years, 20 years. This is the fourth element. In the article which I send you, you will have this bolded, this 6 elements. In order to achieve their objectives, the leading surveillance capitalists sought to establish unrivaled dominance over the, listen, 99.9% of the world's information now rendered in digital formats that they helped to create. So we don't have any chance to enter in any dialogue with those huge giants of surveillance capitalists. And now the consequences, unequal, and this is the fifth element, unequal knowledge about us produces unequal power over us. And so epistemic inequality widens to include the distance between what we can do and what can be done to us. We can, of course, discuss in class how true this statement is, but I think that we are, and this is a very interesting analysis of many sociologists, economists, cultural anthropologists, that we are actually facing in the moment of new feudalism, that we have lords, and they are only four, and you have the people who is governed by these lords. And I think this is a very uncomfortable situation. But what should be done? Что делать, as Lenin famously asked, or someone else. So what should be done? And this is the last point, that we should not be resigned. We should not be I don't know how to depressed by this situation, because we have in our hands something. Anything, wrote Shoshana Zuboff, anything made by humans can be unmade by humans. Surveillance capitalism is young, barely 20 years in the making, but democracy is old, rooted in generations of hope and contest. Surveillance capitalists are rich and powerful, but they are not invulnerable. They have an Achilles heel: fear. They fear lawmakers who do not fear them. They fear citizens who demand a new road forward as they insist on new answers to old questions. Who will know? Who will decide who knows? Who will decide who decides? Who will write the music and who will dance? And I think this is a very nice and optimistic conclusion. And I hope that with this conclusion, we will have a very dynamic and interesting discussion in class.